Those are the two only nuclear reactors you find on the continent of Africa.
Oh wow.
Right.
So what people sometimes forget, Mandela was up against a nuclear armed state. You know? We are the only country in the world that had a nuclear weapons program that got rid of that program. There's no other example. Some people mention Ukraine, but they never had, you know, the codes or anything like that. That was in the hands of the Soviet Union. These are all kennels. After the prisoner was taken away, the security dogs were bred here in the late 70s. So the dogs were not here whilst the prisoner was here.
This was his room.
So ladies and gentlemen, that man behind you, he goes by the name of Professor Robert Sobukwe. He is the only political prisoner in South Africa who was recognized by the regime as such. Like I said, Mandela then were looked upon as security prisoners. The reason being, Mandela, after many peaceful protests, was met with violence. I'm sure if you watch the video on the boat, they speak of the Sharpeville massacre. Mandela then started a military wing to defend a defenseless people, as he described, you know. So the government never wanted to legitimize that military fight by proclaiming the leaders as political prisoners. And that's why they were classified as security prisoners instead. Whereas Robert Sobukwe, the founder of the Pan-African Congress, the man who led those protests on the 21st of March 1960, they focused on a law called the pass laws that affected the black majority only. To cut a long story short, as the crowds grew, the police were being outnumbered, they had live rounds, they opened fire, they killed around the country 189 people. 69 of the total came from Sharpeville. That's why the video only speaks of 69, but in total, if you're focusing countrywide, it's far many more. So they blame him, they charge him with incitement. Before, when he's asked to plead guilty or not, he says no. He then poses a question to the judge: how would you implement an unjust justice system in a just way? Your laws are made up by a race. I believe in only the human race. So with that statement, no plea is offered, but they still give him a 3-year sentence. Some of his leaders that led those protests on the day, they arrive now on Robben Island as the first political prisoners. Instead of joining them, they keep this man on death row in Pretoria Central. There were 134 fellow South Africans who were hanged as security prisoners / political, you know. In our eyes, we look upon them as political. 5 of them were from Mandela's ANC, the youngest being Solomon Mahlangu, who was only 20 years of age. Then you have 7 from an organization called ARM, the African Resistance Movement. One of them, his name is John Frederick Harris. He's the only white South African to have suffered that fate. Now Sobukwe, the rest of them were all from his organization. So going to bed at night, listening to their prayers, their screams, their cries, he says he felt somewhat responsible. And that was almost like a form of psychological torture, you know. By year 2, however, it begins to inspire him. He now is determined to play a role. So he finds ways of orchestrating protests to the outside world in secret. It has a huge impact. Inevitably, the authorities, they realize what he has been up to. The state labels him as enemy number 1. With this, they encourage our government, parliament, to amend our laws on his behalf alone. So that on the day of supposed release, without trial, without charge, without sentence, they could lock him up once more. So they draft an amendment named after him, the Sobukwe Clause. And because of this, they give him political recognition. Because how do you justify to your international partners that this is also a security prisoner when he never took up arms, he broke none of your laws, you changed your laws to keep this man in jail. That's how he gets political recognition. So the comforts you will see in this cell conforms to the international standards as to how a political prisoner compared to a security prisoner would be treated. The others were not given beds, they slept on the floor in the beginning. Forget about a radio, a clock. Look at that picture. He has no uniform. He's got a tie on. He's got reading material when it was contraband for the others initially. Smoking a tobacco pipe when that was contraband too. However, in his case, the authorities, they don't want to repeat the same mistakes twice. Here you're going to orchestrate nothing. For that reason, he will never come into contact with any other inmate. When others were working Monday to Friday, he'd be left in this complex. When they were busy with any type of worship, like Sunday sermons, he would be left here behind. When they were enjoying each other's company and camaraderie during recreation hours, he would never get to experience that too. Once every 6 months, his family could apply for visitation, but instead of taking him to the harbor, they were brought to him. Because he will never repeat what he had done. Even the officers that patrolled around here, whom I worked with for several years, were under strict instruction that they were not supposed to speak to him unnecessarily. By year 3, he was no longer the same person. His mental state was now deteriorating. He started suffering from anxiety. He had difficulty with stringing words together, speaking properly, and eventually his physical health followed. This is around about year number 5. He picks up respiratory problems. Year number 6, his vocal cords become infected. And now we can only strongly assume that the regime feared if he dies here in their hands, they'll be held accountable. Who knows? The people might even look upon him as a martyr. So to avoid this, after 6 lonely years, he's on a boat back to the waterfront. The boat docks. There are some journalists there to interview him. Thereafter, the secret police takes him into custody once more. Eventually, they house him under house arrest for the rest of his life. So he lives a further 8 years under 24-hour surveillance. Although his wife and kids were reunited with him, their house was bugged for sure. There were officers that followed them everywhere. He could never participate in any form of public gathering, and he could never leave this country's borders too. Early hours of the morning, 27th of February, 1978, the tender age of 54, he then finally passes on. His wife Veronica, she's devastated. She packs her bags, she migrates to the USA. They settle in Atlanta, Georgia. A good man who was the mayor of the city by the name of Andrew Young, he facilitated the move because our government, the regime, was not at all interested in having his loved ones abroad sharing his story with all of you. Now today you might not hear much of this man. He's regarded as a forgotten hero, and that's all due to politics. You see, the ANC, the African National Congress, has been in power since democracy. Why would you want to jeopardize that by giving acknowledgement to an opposition, you know? And what caused further resentment, he was a member of Mandela's ANC, but in the late 50s he broke away and took many followers with him. He did not agree with the approach of the ANC at the time. I don't know if you ever came across a document called the Freedom Charter. It stipulates that the land of South Africa belongs to everyone who lives in it, everyone who works it. Their view of land was much different. For them, land was more important than even a governing system. So you know the term the day after, what happens? ANC felt we implement democracy, we give every man and woman the right to vote. They felt no, we first rectify the land issue. Whatever injustices were committed during apartheid or colonization, we attend to that before we decide on anything else. Also, his vision was continental. He was not only concerned of this country, but the entire continent. You know, they did not recognize the borders separating African nations. He knew very well that the borders were not drawn up here. They were drawn up in Berlin, Germany in 1885. So the ultimate goal, one border, one parliament, one currency as a United States of Africa. Thus his organization called the Pan-African Congress. There were even some Americans that inspired him along this path. I don't know if you ever heard of a man by the name of William Edward Du Bois.
Yes, yes.
Or Martin Delaney, you know, or William Sylvester from Trinidad, or even Marcus Garvey.
Yes, Marcus Garvey, yeah.
This was their collective dream. You know. Very interesting book, his biography. It's titled, How Can a Man Die Better? It's after an ancient Greek poem, you know, that inspired him. More or less, to every man on earth, how can man die better than facing fearful odds for the ashes of his fathers and the temples of his gods? So that was chosen to become the title of his biography. If you want to get a broader political perspective as to how South Africa fought our struggle, you have to get alternative political perspectives. So as a source of reference. He was highly educated and intelligent. He was a professor of linguistics before he arrived on Robben Island. He studied economics during his time here, and whilst under house arrest his condition improved. He then began studying law. He qualified as a lawyer before his death. However, you won't find a single video or audio recording of him. So the letters in the next room is just to give you some sort of insight into the man's talent as well. And also to highlight the personal aspect. You know, there's a birthday card. You can imagine birthdays, graduations, funerals, anniversaries. Mandela them had that shoulder, that camaraderie. He endured everything by himself. Then opposite us, these structures that we will pass, there are kennels for dogs. What saddened me when I first arrived to learn that the kennel's dimensions and Mandela's cell, by the centimeter, it's exactly the same. So it tells you a lot of how the animals were treated and also how the prisoners were perceived.
Was there any other differences with him and Mandela besides the land and how they
I think the land was
the main thing?
issue.
And did they have like actual problems, or we see differences and they parted ways?
Both of them eventually decided that they will rather take the Gandhi approach, you know. And in fact, through propaganda to justify his treatment, he's portrayed more as a dangerous person as Mandela, whereas he never took up arms where Mandela did, you know. The fear amongst many white South Africans was that if this man was going to survive and lead this country, then all white folk would have been removed. So to counter that propaganda, he gives the rights of his life story to one of his white students. Benjamin Ogra is the author of his biography. Why would
that was his student?
Sorry?
You said that was his student?
Yeah, he studied linguistics under Sobukwe. So this was the first black man in South Africa to lecture in a university where white folk become his students too.
Crazy.
So this was more a battle against his mind than anything else. I'm a bit biased. My father was part of his organization.
Whoa, that's cool.
So, and Mandela has a lot of limelight. You know, he's regarded as a forgotten hero. So hopefully one day, by sharing his story, he would receive that same credit.
Why do you think Mandela wasn't treated the same as he was?
Because Mandela took up arms. Mandela was treated like all the others.
Oh.
His charges was sabotage and treason. Mandela was portrayed as a terrorist, whereas he wasn't.
Do you know if his family's still in Atlanta?
His granddaughter.
She's alive still?
Makaziwe, she's alive. She has no intention of coming back. Because of the lack of recognition, they've now started lives of their own. In fact, his daughter, his granddaughter's mother, Makaziwe, she stayed in Andrew Young's home for quite some time because she schooled nearby.
Was any of this stuff part of his actual room or cell?
I can't say so, sir. When the museum was established in 1998, I was not around. I only came off 12 years later.
Oh.
So I cannot say for sure that this... What I do know that these letters aren't the originals either. These are all photocopies of the original letters.
This stuff too?
That stuff too, man.
Oh.
So if you see that they're not in such a good state, rest assured the originals are safely stored somewhere else. You can photograph the letters if you want to save time, and then I can show you.
I'm sure.
That's the birthday card, man.
This story
When they finally told him enough is enough, he was 60 years of age. All this excavation was not done by them. During the colonial period, you still then had some lime shipped back to Cape Town. So at least 2/3 during apartheid was excavated by Mandela and 40 other leaders, or 40 including himself. You know, they tried their best, just like they did with Sobukwe, for those leaders not to be too much of an influence over the others. That's why others were kept in communal cells, they were given their own single cells. Others were taken to stone quarries, they were brought to the lime quarry instead. You know, whatever excavation was done was with hand tools. That little cave at the back is where you collected your tools in the morning and where you left them in the evening. You also will see there's no toilets here. There was never sewerage. So you had toilet buckets that they stored in that cave to be used as a bathroom as well. If it was a windy day like today, or if it was scorching, or if it rained, they would remove everything so that lunch could be served. You know, officers would keep at bay, so not only could they have political discussion, but they could even appoint a scribe to document those conversations. Because firstly, they felt that they have to prepare themselves, never giving up hope that when we leave from here, we should leave the best versions of ourselves. So they would then take the opportunity to learn from each other. And at that time, Sobukwe was the only one given study rights. So Mandela said that each one of us as 40, you were a book. What we learned from each other, you know. The documents, the transcripts, they would then smuggle it to those in the communal cells. So that if you're serving 5, 10 years, at least you are now armed with the knowledge compiled by these leaders too. The man who used to smuggle the information, his name is Mac Maharaj from our Hindu community. He was then appointed by Mandela as his first democratic minister of transport. So jokingly I say, yeah, he proved he could transport anything anywhere.
Yes.
So instead of this site, which was meant to punish them, to crush their spirit, they turned it into an incubator where these leaders were molded. 60% of all the ministers that served under Mandela were from this quarry. 3 out of 5 democratic presidents too. Unfortunately, Mandela is only acknowledged for that, but Kgalema Motlanthe, who was once our president, and our previous president, Jacob Zuma, were political prisoners / security prisoners on Robben Island too. So for us, we say that the lime quarry is a symbol of our victory, a symbol of the triumph of the human spirit over adversity. But on the other hand, it's also a memorial. If you look at this cairn of stones, on the 11th of February 1990, Mandela had a reunion held in this quarry. On that day, he took 1,500 of them to that quarter. He demonstrated how the work was done. He then delivered a speech during which he mentions the 38 that died on Robben Island. He then is overwhelmed with emotion. He breaks away. He lays the first stone. So in the Xhosa culture, if you lose someone, you go to where they died and you leave a stone to show respect. When the others realized his intentions, without any planning or discussion, they then found stones to add to these. So we say this is almost like the tombstone that never was. Those that died on Robben Island as political prisoners were never buried by their family. The government did not want to take accountability, so they were buried as paupers in undisclosed locations. Wow. Today we have identified the cemeteries where they have been buried. The repatriation project to retrieve their remains have started too. I see my colleague. I'm coming to us where?
What was this right here?
This is the courtyard where
They have rats?
Courtyard.
Oh.
Where the Mandelas used to work.
Oh, work.
This section, the Mandela section.
All the leaders of the political parties were kept here. The Mandelas, the Sisulus, the Dr. Masemolas, Toyo from Namibia, all those who were in leadership in their respective parties were kept here. This is called isolation section.
Isolation.
Yeah. Okay, individual cells. The guards will be here. This was an office for the guards. You can see it's kept here. Okay. This is a master key to open the whole prison. If you have this, you can escape from prison. Master key. Okay, let me first explain again. This is B section. We had 9 sections here. A section, B section, C section, isolation. You sleep alone in a cell. Hospital, also single cells, individual cells. The other section was kitchen, you sleep as a group. D, E, F, and G, communal cells. So I'm going to take you to one of the bigger cells, B section, A section. So as I said, leaders of the different parties were kept here. In the 60s, 62 to 1971, prisoners were sleeping on the floor. Can I show you where were they sleeping? You were given these 2 mats and 3 blankets up to 1979. So Mandela would be sleeping here, and it was very tall, he was sleeping sideways from 1964 to 1982 when he was transferred to another prison. He spent 18 years here. So this was his stool to sit and study. This was used as a toilet.
Yeah.
From 4 o'clock in the afternoon until 7, he'll be using this. All the people who were in this section, they'll be using this because there's no flushing toilet here. From 4 o'clock in the afternoon until 7 the following day, you will be expected to bring your baguette inside. If you don't, you'll mess up the floor. So you were subjected to that for 18 years because you were sentenced to life imprisonment. 18 years here, 7 years in Portsmouth in the mainland, 2 years in Vitafesta, released on the 11th of February 1990 when political parties were here. This was a utensils, a cup, spoon. Yeah. This was used as an intercom. If you have a problem at night, from 4 o'clock until 7, you press here, the guard will come and attend to you, but not open the cells because of the thing that you want to run away.
So this was Mandela's actual
Yeah,
cell.
you can take a
That's his actual cell?
yeah,
Wow.
take a picture inside and have a feel from there.
Show it last day.
So this was locked at 4 and this door. The numbers were kept here. Mandela's door was 4. My number was 25, 80.
It's crazy.
This is really is so. You want to stand in that corner? It's a good view.
Nah, that's fine.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Hold on. Thank you.
Another.
That's enough jail for me.
I want a picture of me in there. But y'all could go. I'll go after.
Inside.
You was here too, since you was a political prisoner?
Yes, I was here too. That's why I'm
in
taking.
this section?
I was in the other section. I'm going to take.
Right through the cell.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to another section now. B section. This is B section. So when you open the sunset 7, you must take this to the flashing fire. Observation and punishment. When you
Oh,
first
say it right there.
when you come to prison, you use that main door, go to the reception, they give you uniform and prison card. From there, you'll be kept here for a week. Observation. From there, you transfer to various sections. And this was also used as punishment. C section. Assessment section. Before I came to prison in 1980, I was sentenced on the 30th of May 1980. Came to Robben Island in July. Went through the reception. After the reception, given uniform and the prison card. From there was brought here. We're 9 of us. We kept here for a week.
Which one was yours?
One of this one.
Yeah.
This one was kept here for a week. We're 9 of us. After a week, we were transferred to a bigger section. Those from leadership were transferred to B section. Yeah. So you'll be here by yourself. At times, you'll be here on your own because you're punished. So Mandela, for that manuscript, was brought here
Yeah.
from that section. He stayed here for a year.
In the same one?
Yeah. One of the cells here.
Wow.
only subjected to 30 minutes exercise in the morning, 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the afternoon. Shower during that time, during that 30 minutes. Yeah. But that side, you'll be outside your cell from 7 to 3:30.
Yeah.
If you are punished, 23 hours inside. Mm. No communication with other prisoners. We're entitled to 3 meals a day. If you are punished, you are only entitled to 1 meal. No communication with other prisoners. This is punishment. That is isolation, but this is double.
Yeah.
This is
Oh, so this was worse.
as I said, assessment and punishment. But before you're sentenced, at times you'll be in detention alone. They used to call it isolation section. As I said, this will be all by yourself here.
You mentioned
For a week or 2 weeks.
you said earlier that you were exiled over here.
Exile.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to Swaziland.
You went to Switzerland.
Mozambique. No, Swaziland.
Oh,
Swatini.
Swat.
Swatini, Mozambique,
Yeah.
Tanzania. Also went to Zimbabwe.
And where were you
So when
caught
I
at?
came back, huh?
Were you caught in any of those countries, or you just came back and got caught here and arrested?
We had to come back to come and fight for our freedom. So
Oh.
we went to go and acquire skills, ideological and military training.
And those other countries. That's
Those
why
countries
you
were
Oh.
supporting us,
Oh.
like Tanzania.
And
Tanzania was the headquarters of the liberation movements. Those who were fighting for freedom were based in Tanzania.
And why didn't you just stay instead of coming to face time
Stay well.
in Tanzania?
No. My reason going out there was to come back.
Oh, you was gonna come back
We
regardless
wanted to
to
come
face.
back to fight for freedom.
The enemy was
I didn't want to be there.
Oh, so you wasn't trying to
Because
escape.
Tanzania was independent, they fought for their freedom. So I had to come back and free our people.
I like.
Contact our people so that we become free also.
Yeah.
I should have gone out and study, maybe get a scholarship.
Nah, but that would have been morally wrong. We would have left the people behind.
Yes, you see. Okay, let's
Because he
go
was
to,
trained, most
this
of the
is
people that
punishment.
Yeah.
would go to get military training so that they'll come back and
Prepared.
fight the system.
Nice.
Because remember, when Condoleezza's were,
So the
there was a
exercise
liberation
was
army.
outside here. 30
A
minutes
lot of the members,
exercise
but they couldn't train
in the
here.
courtyard.
Yeah.
For those who were punished.
So they would leave and go and train and then come back.
That's crazy. Wait, what was this?
The punishment, if you are
To go
get
outside.
for exercise, you'll go out here.
Through the
for
back?
30 minutes.
Oh,
Only 30 minutes from here, you come back into your cell because you are
Oh.
punished.
So that's how you could get
You
out.
only use the shower during the day for that 30 minutes.
that was the shower right here?
Cold in the 60s. During my time, it was hot. Things were better. But in the 60s, cold. You can
Oh.
feel this place is very cold.
Oh, look at the shower head.
One, two, three.
There's probably more.
There's here, yeah. Holy shit.
I'm assuming that's the toilets. Oh, but those are not the real toilets though.
They don't want you to use them, so they.
There you go.
We also serving their sentences. Letter which is censored. I spoke about censored. Letters were censored. Prison cards. You can come beside to take pictures from people from Namibia. This is a list of all prisoners who were from Namibia. The Namibians were kept here up to 1990 when they got their independence. This place was occupied by South Africans. Namibia was only named in 1990. Before it was called Southwest Africa. It was a colony of the Germans until 1950. I can remember. This is a list of, okay, the leader of His comrades was kept with the Mandela this section. But the ordinary members were here.
Do you know why they decided to put the Europeans here?
They were part of South Africa. It's divide and rule, segregation. Actually, isn't it was still under apartheid? It was still under apartheid system. We're all prisoners but kept separate. South Africa is one side and Namibia is one side. We don't know why we didn't do that, but we all fighting for the same cause. So the average said, you don't have to go to eat because that's it. As I said, this was very like we put our toiletries here. We also put our books because we're not allowed to study. So we put our books. Studying, receiving the letters, getting visitors. Then I was spoken was English with the arts, but the months was supposed to go off the whole
How are relations
with English, yeah.
No, it's not good.
Just good. Amongst the business. We're only tensions when we're looking for one item. No. So when I come to prison in the morning, I count you after counting you and allow you to go and have your breakfast. I close the door at 4, open at 7 of the day, count you after counting you. Go and have your, what time is it now? Okay, let's go to the kitchen. I showed you where I was working. I was sleeping. Okay. You go there and squat, take your plate and go and eat there. Very fast. Rainy, sunny, windy, you'll be there.
Under that tree?
Under that tree. So it's called the memorial tree. One guy in 1980 collapsed there and died. So that's why it's called the memorial tree. One of the guys who died in prison he collapsed there.
Why did the guy die?
He was sick. Heart attack. Others it was after torture. Some of us did not die, others died in prison. So those from the communal cells will queue outside here, will give them food through this window. Those from A, B, C and hospital will take food to them. I'm going to show you the trolley we're using to deliver food to the Mandela. Work in the kitchen, we've got access to all the sections. All those who work in the kitchen are very disciplined. They're also coming from political parties.
Like
We're
you?
Very democratic.
You
Yes.
worked in the kitchen?
I work in the kitchen. That's why I'm still fresh like this. I work in the kitchen. I worked in the kitchen. That's why I'm bringing you here. I'm going to show you where I was sleeping. This was our hall. There was a library here and a shop to buy our toiletries and to watch movies once a week here. So I was working here in the front room, cooking here. So food for all prisoners was prepared. for the entire prisoners. Only for prisoners, not for the guards, for prisoners. So we're cooking for our own comrades here. We're also coming from different political parties. There was a kitchen committee to select people to come to and work in the kitchen. For obvious reasons, I'm going to show the reasons outside at the scholar. To what were we doing in the kitchen? Some of the things we're doing to disseminate information from one section to another. Information, if you have to take information from general section, it must first come here and we send it to the leaders. If the leaders want to send information, leadership to kitchen. So we're trying to avoid conflict of interest. If it's a message for the PAC, it will be handled by a person from PAC. If it's a message for ANC, something like that. But that was our private arrangement, not known by prison authorities.